Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So Python is a really popular language which is being used for various other fields like web development, ML, robotics, and much more. Today we'll look into lists, a very simple data structure in Python. List is like an array in other languages like Java, but the difference is we can have any mix of data type in a list, like integers with strings and booleans, everything. So we'll get started. So starting, we have my list, which has the words hello and world. Next, if you try to print the list, this will result in printing the list, which means hello world. And if you try to print the type of the list, this would actually give you type class list. Next, we'll look into more useful functions which could be used with lists. We'll define a list named mylist1, and we'll run a for loop which appends the numbers from 0 to 5. And if you try to print the list, this will result in a list of 0 to 5. We could have used mylist1 equals list of to actually give a list to us. So that's the example here. My list equals list of apple, banana, and cherry. We just call the constructor list and pass in these values to initialize. Next, we try directly accessing the list with indexing, which you might have come across in other programming languages too. If you try to print my list of 0, this would actually give you the result hello. And if we try to access using index, and if we give a new string, this would replace the word world, and this would result in the list having 2 strings with the words hello and hello again. So that is what is shown here. Next, if we try to insert any element, we could directly give an index to insert along with whatever value that you could pass, like you can have string or boolean or anything for that matter. So that is list here, my list.insert, and you give the index and just pass in the string. So this will result in a list having the words hello world, hello again. So you could actually see an increase in the size of the array. So that's really a great specialty that we could think of, dynamically changing the list size. Next, while talking about indexing, we need to talk about negative indexing. Negative indexing could be thought of like the list length minus the index we specify. So what we could do is just think it of like accessing the last element like -1, just like in a number line that you could imagine of. There's another concept called slicing. Slicing could also be used on strings, and as we are talking about lists, this could also be used in lists. To show you the example, these 3 would give you the outputs like these. Like, for example, splicing would actually result slicing like these. See, very simple. Next, we'll get into removing the elements from the list. there are so many different options that you could use for. The first one would be remove. As it's really very simple, you can understand that remove accepts a value that needs to be deleted from the list. So deleting using remove of 1 would result in removing the number 1 itself. So that's the reason. Next, we could use pop. Pop is very useful, just like the remove statement. But the only difference is that the pop actually accepts an index instead of the value. So if we just pass in 1, this would pop out the number or any other value which is in the index 1. The indexing should be like 0 index, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. If we don't pass any index, then this would actually remove the last element, just like pop. Like if you would have come across stack, pop means removing the last element, right? So that's the same thing which is happening here. Next, there's another way that you could use for removing an item from the list, which is DL, which stands for delete. Delete my list 3 of 1 would actually delete the value which is at the specific index 1. So that's the reason we have deleted at the specific index 1. Here the value is 4, so the 4 is missing, so you could be sure of that. If you give delete list 3 alone, this would actually delete the whole list -3 and also remove any references to that list. So if you try to print -3, this would result in an error. So what to do? You need to keep the list as it is, but you just want to remove the contents. So we have a method called clear, which actually removes the content of the list, but keeping the reference of the list as it is. That's it for lists, and there are so many other useful methods that could be used with lists. For more information, you could reference the official Python doc. Thank you for watching.